Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ from the NFL. Aaron Rodgers' season is now over. Our Jonathan Jones reporting that an MRI this morning confirmed it is a torn Achilles for the four-time MVP. Rodgers carted off the field early in Monday night's season-opening win over the Bills just 4 plays in. The 39-year-old lasted that long before the injury, and his future is now very much in doubt. And let's welcome in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, from around this. JJ, first of all, your reaction to the news, the Jets, without their four-time MVP starting quarterback who they traded for in the offseason, now it's going to be Zach Wilson for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, incredibly unfortunate for the Jets, for their fans, for Aaron Rodgers, for everyone involved. You know, when you have a Jets team that is competitive, when you have New York that is alive, when you have an NFL MVP caliber quarterback who's playing well, it makes everything better in this league and in this sport. And so it is unfortunate all the way around. Altogether, though, not surprising after certainly seeing what we saw last night. Unfortunately, with these sorts of injuries, Achilles, when you see the mechanism that takes place there with the ankle, when you see him in a walking boot, when the x-rays that you just take as a perfunctory measure because it's right there, when they come back negative, when you talk the way that everyone talks, and lastly, when you test the Achilles out there, you know what it is. And so the MRI, of course, confirmed that, a complete tear of the left Achilles for Aaron Rodgers. That means that with surgery, there is no question about it. He's not going to be able to play again in the 2023 season. Even if the Jets make it all the way to the Super Bowl on CBS in Las Vegas, there's no chance for him to be able to return that quickly from this sort of injury. And so his season is absolutely over. His career may very well be over because at 39, he's turning 40 years old in December. He's going to have to decide if this is a rehab and recovery process worth going through, understanding that even if you do return to full health, that the chances of potentially re-injuring that Achilles are higher than they were before injuring it the first time. So a number of decisions that are going to have to be made, not least of which, of course, for Aaron Rodgers and his future, but certainly the Jets moving forward with Zach Wilson as QB1 for this week and the weeks ahead, but maybe not for the entire season.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Rodgers is going to be 40 on December 3rd and obviously has some big decisions to make. I mean, there was a lot of hoopla, you know, the fan base re-energized with Rodgers coming in. We saw Hard Knocks, kind of the impact that he was able to have on the players around him in such a short time. Here he is coming out last night to much fanfare and a big ovation. What does it mean for this Jets franchise now that they've lost Rodgers for the season and do have to go with Zach Wilson?
Well, it's a huge blow. You know, they did not want to have to turn to Zach Wilson. They wanted this to be a redshirt season for Zach Wilson, the opportunity for him to take a breather, to learn from one of the best to ever do it. Because, of course, Zach Wilson, the last time we saw him starting for the New York Jets, he was one of, if not the worst, starting quarterback in the NFL. And so he needed that reset. And maybe he was going to find a new career with the New York Jets once Aaron Rodgers retired after a year or two. Maybe he would ultimately find a new career elsewhere. But the plan was certainly not for Zach Wilson to be starting in week 2. It certainly wasn't for him to take 98% of the offensive snaps against the Buffalo Bills in week 1 with no QB1 reps to be had in the practice and the week of practice leading up to that. So it's going to be difficult for Zach Wilson because it was going to be difficult for the New York Jets, this fantastic defense, these wonderful weapons, with Aaron Rodgers through the first 7 or so weeks of the season. This schedule for the New York Jets, we've talked so much about all the primetime games, and you know they have 5 or 6 of them already. They may get flexed and all that, but we see the schedule right here. Consider, if they had the 4-time NFL MVP, this was a difficult first 4 weeks of the season with Aaron Rodgers. Cowboys, we just saw what they did on MetLife Field. The Patriots will muck the game up, keep it ugly, and it'll be a one-score game like it was against the NFC title game, an NFC champion Eagles, the Chiefs, we know who they are. The Eagles right there. And then you finally get to the bye. They were going to be fortunate, the Jets, to be 500 with Aaron Rodgers. Now you look at that, and really, frankly, at least through the Chiefs game on Sunday Night Football, Zach Wilson will have to be the starting quarterback. They could go out there later today, Jeremy, and trade for someone. And I'm not even saying that that's going to happen. I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. But that player couldn't come in and know the playbook well enough and be well versed enough in the offense to show up and play before October. So it is going to be Zach Wilson against some of the NFL's best teams. This is a Jets team that is going to have to continue to be led by its defense. They're going to have to create turnovers like they did last night against Josh Allen. You're going to have a fantastic run game from Breece Hall and others. The offensive line that can't really block many pass rushers seem to run block well enough, and Zach Wilson just cannot turn the football over. He has to have clean games. It doesn't matter if he goes 10 for 20 for 100 yards. He cannot have an interception. He cannot have a fumble. Those are going to be killers for the Jets in this new post-Aaron Rodgers era before there really ever was an Aaron Rodgers era.
Well, and now with Rodgers' injury being made official, Zach Wilson is the only healthy quarterback on that 53-man depth chart. I would expect that Tim Boyle will get elevated from the practice squad and be QB2 perhaps for this week. But, JJ, in terms of the veteran options that are out there, who are some of the quarterbacks that the Jets might be looking to bring in to maybe come in as a backup at QB2?
Yeah, the immediate first option that you think of is the veteran Joe Flacco, who had been in New York for some time. Obviously, they have a new offensive coordinator in Nathaniel Hackett, who had tailored this offense around Aaron Rodgers and what he does, certainly giving him so much freedom at the line of scrimmage to, if it's a run play, check out of that and go to a pass play and just flick the ball over to a wide receiver or tight end in a favorable matchup. We see the list right there. That's obviously not all of the free agent quarterbacks that are out there, but if you are the Jets, you want to, as you're adding, try to add in free agency versus trading for a quarterback, because you're going to have to give up assets in order to obtain that quarterback. Carson Wentz at the top of the list by age, 30 years old, but 3 playoff franchises have given up on Carson Wentz because he couldn't actually really get them into the playoffs. We know how it ended in Washington and in Indianapolis before that. Matt Ryan still keeping in shape, but if you have a quarterback who isn't known for his mobility behind that offensive line that has shown its struggles against a pass rush, that could prove difficult. Phillip Rivers is not on that list, but he was an option for the San Francisco 49ers had they actually won that NFC title game against the Philadelphia Eagles and Brock Purdy would have been out. We know that Kyle Shanahan would have given Phillip a call there. I don't know that he has 16-plus games in him for an entire season. You continue to go down the list, Jeremy, and I've been talking with personnel executives throughout the league all morning. There are no good options for the New York Jets. You are certainly not going to get a player anywhere close to the equivalent of Aaron Rodgers, but if you want to find someone, a veteran who has the mental acuity of a Rodgers, who can process pre-snap and otherwise, great. You may be able to go out there and find someone like him, but you're not going to have the physical, how quickly he can get rid of the football. One of the fastest releases, perhaps the quickest release in NFL history at the quarterback position. Or you go with a younger guy who maybe has a little bit of mobility, but he doesn't fit the offense from a mental aspect and standpoint because of what Aaron Rodgers is able to process at the line of scrimmage. And so whatever the Jets wind up doing, it is certainly not going to be equal to Aaron Rodgers. They just want to try to find something, a 70 cents on the dollar. I just don't know that it's out there to be found right now for New York.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see how the offense has to adjust because of those very factors that you state. Nathaniel Hackett, used to a guy like Rodgers with that quick release and the pre-snap reads that he can make, certainly not something that Zach Wilson is probably very comfortable with at this point. JJ, Rodgers was not brought in as a free agent. This was a trade. So what happens now? How does this injury affect what that trade looks like long term?
It's interesting, and we're still working through all of that, but obviously one of the conditions that were in this trade was that it was a 65% playtime percentage for Aaron Rodgers, and so obviously he is not going to meet that. He will be below 1% of a playtime percentage. So there were conditions attached to this, and so but those conditions whether they are met or not met, and we know that they are not going to be met, at least that one, it's going to take some time for all of that to get processed because the league is one that stands on precedent. So still some time to shake out what exactly that trade ultimately is going to mean.
And we know that you will be all over it. Our lead insider, Jonathan Jones, joining us here to discuss the breaking news. Aaron Rodgers out for the season with a torn Achilles, now made official. JJ confirming that news for us. Thanks for hopping on with us, JJ. And of course, they'll be discussing this on the Pick 6 podcast. They had a podcast last night after the injury occurred, discussing it. Will Brinson, John Breach. They'll be up with another podcast. There's going to be a lot of chatter today about what this means for Rodgers, what this means for the Jets. You can download and follow the Pick 6 podcast wherever you get your pods, or scan that QR code to listen now.